2025 is the year when many Americans suddenly realized they are no longer living in the same America from 10 years ago. 50 USD used to be enough for a whole week of groceries, and this year, it only buys an average dinner in the suburbs of Seattle. Not because you spend recklessly, not because you are lazy, but because the country that once promised, just work hard and you will live well, has become a place where retirees have to race against prices every single day. But outside the United States, there are still places where life slows down, where $50 gives you a whole week, where meals don't make you feel guilty, where a small room doesn't swallow an entire country. Places where, with just one gentle decision, you can live more fully, breathe more deeply, and feel much more at peace. If you've ever wondered, is there still a place that gives me a decent life without having to sacrifice everything? Then the next 5 countries are your answer. Dream it. Pack it. Go. Pakistan, rural Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the quiet land where time only breathes. In Pakistan, there is a land where the first feeling you get when you step in is not, "I'm in a foreign country," but, "My God, why didn't I come here sooner?" Rural Khyber Pakhtunkhwa feels like a parallel world, where people live so slowly that you feel like they are deliberately holding on to the values the rest of the world has already lost. In the morning, fog covers the distant mountain ranges, roosters crow from mud rooftops, and the smell of cardamom milk tea rises from someone's kitchen. This kind of peace is strange in the way it doesn't hit your eyes. It hits your heartbeat. What surprises many people is that beneath all this rustic simplicity, life is gentle enough that you only need a budget which in the US might not even be enough for a single electric bill. The total cost for one person is only about 215 USD per month. And the unbelievable part is that you can actually live well, live decently. A local room costs only 30-50 USD month, clean, safe, and located in a neighborhood where your neighbors care about you more than New Yorkers care about themselves. Food is so cheap that you slowly get used to buying vegetables without checking the price. 1 kilo of rice, a dozen eggs, full spices, all enough for you to cook for an entire week, with the same amount of money that in the US only buys you a bowl of proto with no extra toppings. This is the cost for someone living like a local, not an American lifestyle. The most beautiful thing in rural KP is not the low cost, but the people. One time, an American man in his 60s said that on his first day in town, he asked for directions to the market. A farmer heard him, smiled, patted his shoulder, and walked him all the way to a market more than 2 kilometers away, then insisted on not letting him pay for tea after they talked for nearly 20 minutes. The story ended with a sentence that almost made him cry. "Here, guests don't pay. Guests are joy." That story is real, and that kind of kindness is not rare in this region. The cost of living is low, but the feeling of being respected is high. People in rural KP live with a very clear community spirit. They don't judge how much money you have. They don't compare which iPhone you use. They ask if you've eaten yet, if you need help, and if you're feeling okay. Kindness here is not because they want anything from you, but because in this land, that is the right way to treat people. Of course, rural KP is not for anyone who loves convenience. You will have weak internet at night when the whole town turns on Wi-Fi. Electricity sometimes goes out for an hour or two during the week, as if the universe is reminding you to step away from the screen and look at the sky. There is no Starbucks, no shopping mall, and you need to dress modestly to blend into the conservative Islamic culture. But the interesting thing is that all these lacks are not as uncomfortable as you think. They feel like pauses that force you to slow down, and in those pauses, you see yourself more clearly. Pakistan does not offer visa-free entry for Americans, but the 30-90-day e-visa applied online is very simple, and if you want to stay longer, you can extend it or do a visa run to Nepal or Sri Lanka, the method many expats still use every year. Healthcare in the town is basic, but if you need serious treatment, major cities are only a few hours away. Medicine is cheap, doctors are friendly, and a simple medical checkup costs the same as a cup of coffee in Seattle. Rural KP is not a paradise, but it is a place where people who have been carried too far by modern life find their own breath again. You may not like the lack of convenience here, but it is also possible that, for the first time in many years, you will feel that you no longer have to race against anyone. If you ever thought, "I wish life could be a little lighter," then perhaps Pakistan is the place for you to try starting over. If you feel this land awakens something in your heart, leave a very simple comment. I want to slow down. For India, Kochi, Kerala, the land of incense, where only those who are slow enough can see the fullness. India is the place where you lose yourself and somehow find yourself again. A pilgrim once wrote that sentence, and when you arrive in Kochi, you understand that it is not a line of prose. It is a state of being. Nothing is loud, but nothing is silent, as if the world here has been adjusted to a pace 2 beats slower than the rest of the planet. In the morning, temple bells ring in the thin mist. The scent of incense slips gently into your clothes, and the people of Kerala begin their day with a calmness that makes you feel like you have stepped into a world someone has fine-tuned to match the rhythm of human breath. Kochi's greatest strength is not its affordability, but the way it makes life simple. Here there is a model that every foreigner is surprised to learn. Paying guest, abbreviated as PG, where you only need to pay a small amount each month, about 30 to 72 USD, and in return, you get a clean room, a fan that turns steadily every evening, Wi-Fi enough to video call your loved ones, along with 2 meals a day cooked by the Amma, the Kerala mothers, with a love you thought only existed in old stories. Dal, vegetable curry, basmati rice, chapati still warm. Those simple dishes nourish both your stomach and your heart at the same time, helping you keep a fixed budget without having to think too much. Thanks to PG, everything becomes easy to manage. You don't need to worry about the electricity bill. You don't need to calculate every meal, and with just over 130 USD left, you have an entire month to live a decent life. A few cups of hot filter coffee for under 60 cents, a proper vegetarian lunch for only about 1-2 USD, and a tuk-tuk ride through coconut-shaded streets for just 1-2 USD is enough to take you from the fish market to the Fort Kochi beach. And unlike many people's assumptions about India, Kochi is actually a leading medical hub. This place has hospitals that Americans would describe as world-class. Aster MedCity, Amrita Hospital, where doctors have studied in the US, the UK, Singapore, and a specialist consultation is only about 20-30 USD. Medicines are 70-90% cheaper than in the US, so even without insurance, everything is still within reach. The total cost is only about 180-200 USD a month. Kochi is rated as one of the safest and most foreigner-friendly places in South India. Not extreme noise, not random violence. Only the respect that comes from a culture that treats guests as friends. Visa, strangely enough, is just as light as the rhythm of life here. Americans can apply for a 30 to 180-day e-visa entirely online. No invitation letter, no financial proof. And when it is about to expire, you just need to pop over to Nepal or Sri Lanka for a few days and come back. A cycle that expats jokingly call visa meditation. because it is so simple that it feels like a ritual of stepping through a new doorway of life. Of course, Kochi is not perfect. You will encounter a few days of chaotic traffic, honking that gets on your nerves, a few moments when Indian spices feel too strong, or administrative procedures so slow they force you to practice actual meditation. But those things are not flaws. They are like the natural veins of a gemstone. They remind you that this beauty comes from authenticity, unpolished, unmanufactured. An American elder who has lived in Kochi for 8 years once said that what made him stay was not PG, not the cost. One rainy afternoon, he stood under his porch looking at the flooded road, hesitating about whether he should wade through it. The elderly lady next door stepped out, invited him inside, poured him a cup of hot milk tea, then handed him a few pieces of homemade sweets. When he tried to pay, she laughed, put her hand on her chest, and said, "Here, food isn't bought. Food is shared." That sentence is not just adorable. It is Kochi, a place where you are seen, welcomed, and truly belong. If standing between two choices, an expensive but familiar life in America, and a life that is sufficient but gentle in Kochi, what would you choose? Share your thoughts. And if this journey touched you even just a little, gently leave a like and a subscribe so we can continue traveling together to the next lands. 3. Nepal. The place where you find a life that was never lost. If there is a place in the world that makes you feel like you have never missed out on life, then that place is Nepal. That sentence is not a tourism slogan. It is an experience, a moment when you stand in a morning in Bhaktapur, the temple bells ringing softly, thin lines of incense drifting in the cold air, and you realize your heart is slowing down to the exact rhythm it needs. In Nepal, older people are not pushed into a corner of society. People call you Dai, meaning a respected person. A simple word, but enough to make Americans who are used to a culture where only the young have value feel as if a piece of dignity, worn down by the hectic life in America, has just been returned to them. You are no longer the person paying $2,000 month in rent, no longer the person who must choose between medicine and electricity, no longer a burden on the healthcare system. Here, you are a part of the rhythm of life, slow, warm, and light. But Nepal is not a fairy tale. It is the truth, sometimes rough, sometimes so rustic it startles you, but always the truth. And that is exactly what makes it beautiful. You can live in the outskirts of Kathmandu or Bhaktapur with a compact, clean room costing about $75 month if you know how to look in local residential areas. Not tourist zones, not expat zones. Electricity and water in Nepal are not cheap, but not to the point of cutting off all hope. You will have to learn how to live economically. Turn off the lights when not in use, boil water when needed, use a small gas stove for dal-bhat meals with fresh vegetables from the market. And that is exactly how Nepalese people have lived for generations. Utility and internet costs are usually around $50 per month, and if you simplify your life, you will realize you don't need as much as you think. The hardest thing in Nepal is not money. It is learning how to get used to a rhythm so slow you feel like time dissolves between the red brick alleys. When living here, you start seeing clearly the things that in the busy American life you never had the chance to pause and notice. A hot meal costing only $1 to $2, children playing tag under a temple roof, an old man repairing a pair of sandals with a needle and a thin string, and people smiling at you for no reason. If you live in Nepal on a limited budget, the most important thing is to understand how the locals spend. Every home-cooked meal averages only $3 day, enough vegetables, rice, lentils, and a bit of meat on weekends. You will walk often because distances in residential areas are very close, and using taxis will quickly destroy your budget limit. And you will also learn how to store dry food for the days of power outages. Because Nepal, sometimes, is still Nepal. Healthcare here is not grand, but it is absolutely not frightening. Small private clinics can help you handle basic issues for 10-20 USD per visit. And if something bigger happens, you will need to travel into Kathmandu, where the service is good and still 85–90% cheaper than the US. Nepal is not a destination for those who want 5-star hospitals. It is a place for those who want to live slowly, live truthfully, and live close enough to nature that you sometimes feel like the mountain in front of you is breathing with you. When you add everything together, housing, food, utilities, internet, small expenses, and a simple lifestyle, the cost of living for one person in Nepal falls around 125 USD fixed costs, plus 90 USD for food, totaling about 215 USD month. Not wealthy, not abundant, but enough. And sometimes, enough is exactly what many Americans no longer feel back home. And then there will be a moment, maybe in the late afternoon, when you sit on the rooftop watching the sun paint the old walls gold, or in the morning, when an elderly woman hands you an extra hot fried bread without asking for anything. You will ask yourself, why did it take me so long to live like this? If you are in this video and asking yourself, could Nepal be my new chapter? Leave your thoughts. And if you want me to continue bringing you to peaceful places like this, just a gentle like and a subscribe, and we will meet again across many more horizons. 2. Sri Lanka, the island where the exhausted find their first breath again. Have you ever woken up in the US and realized you are working just to be allowed to live? A normal apartment costs 1,800 USD, a medical bill can wipe out your entire retirement fund, and a 12 USD dinner always comes with a feeling of guilt toward yourself. Americans don't leave home because they love adventure. They leave because the US has become too expensive to breathe. And in their most exhausted moments, many people find Sri Lanka. In Batticaloa, you will see a world slow down as if time itself wanted to rest. Streets shaded by coconut trees, the blue ocean just a few steps away, and people so gentle you feel like you have lived here before. No more crowds, no more noise of the loud American life, just a light breath, literally. Costs in Sri Lanka are not surprisingly cheap, but cheap in a real, tangible way. A local rental room, white lime walls, a ceiling fan, and a few steps to the beach. In Batticaloa ranges from 70–80 USD a month. If you cook with rice, curry, vegetables, and fresh fish from the morning market, food costs stabilize at 110–125 USD a month. Utilities, electricity, water, gas, are only about 20–25 USD a month if you use them as sparingly as locals do. Transportation is almost negligible. Many people spend 10 USD a month on bicycles or buses. Total living cost 200–270 USD a month. You live comfortably. Sri Lanka is not perfect, but it is precisely that imperfection that makes it real. The electricity is sometimes weak, the internet is not always stable, and imported goods are so expensive that you will immediately drop your American-style consumption habits. But in return, this place gives you something the U.S. has forced you to forget, the feeling that everything is enough. One afternoon at Kaladi Beach, I met an American man named William, 67, a former delivery driver from Ohio. He laughed when he said that in 40 years of working, he had never seen the ocean in real life. I didn't know how exhausted I was until this place let me breathe again, he said as he looked out at the sea, holding a cup of milk tea that cost only 25 cents. Every morning he cycles along the coastline, eats fish and rice for just $1, and lives a life that with $2,000 month in the US, he could never have. Healthcare in Sri Lanka is not as good as in the US. That is a truth that must be stated clearly. But private clinics costing $6 to $10 per visit are fairly decent. And if you need more specialized treatment, people often fly to India, still far cheaper than a single hospital bill in the US. This is why Sri Lanka is suitable for relatively healthy retirees who want to live slowly, close to the sea, and can take care of themselves. The most beautiful thing about Sri Lanka is how people look at you. No one sees you as a burden, no one pushes you, no one judges you. The elderly here are not invisible. They are respected with a very quiet kindness. You will easily find yourself blending into the gentle rhythm of life without even trying. And if this country makes you feel a little lighter, a gentle like and subscribe. But enough for me to continue creating more meaningful stories for you. 1. Laos. The land where time bows to you before you walk in. There are countries that make you want to slow down, but only Laos makes you quietly whisper, "I wish I had come here earlier." Laos is beautiful in the way of a morning where no one hurries, a cup of tea no one rushes, and a rhythm of breathing you thought you had lost after decades of living in America. In Luang Prabang, where century-old golden temples reflect onto the Mekong, calm like a sheet of brown silk, you find yourself disappearing into a peace you cannot explain. No more midnight emails. No more $200 medical bills that keep American retirees awake. No more race that you never understood why you had to join. A small wooden riverside stilt house, the kind Lao people call ban, is only about $120 month. Sticky, fragrant rice, forest vegetables, stream fish, seasonal fruits. If you cook like the locals, total food costs are only about $100 month. Utilities and internet are around $25 month, and transportation is mostly by bicycle, costing $5 to $10 for the entire month. Total living cost for one person ranges from $195 to $55 month. But what makes Laos the most special country is not the cost, but the way people here treat one another. Lao people don't ask how much you earn. They don't look at you with judgment. They don't see old age as a burden. They bow slightly, put their hands together, and greet you with a gentle smile, the kind of smile Americans only see in old photographs of their grandparents' generation. One afternoon in Vang Vieng, I met an American elderly woman named Sandra, 72 years old. She used to be a nurse in California, where rent alone had swallowed more than 70% of her income. She said that on her first day in Laos, she sat by the Nam Song River, watched children laughing, watched clouds drifting over the mountain peaks, and cried. I asked, "Do you miss home?" She shook her head. "No. I just realized that for 40 years I have never truly rested." Healthcare in Laos is not strong, and we need to say this very clearly. But Laos is close to Thailand, where with just a few hours by bus or a short flight, you can access international standard hospitals at costs still dozens of times cheaper than in the US. In Laos, people live so gently that clinics are simply places they occasionally stop by, not a constant worry like back home. Laos visa is light. Americans are granted 30 days upon entry and can extend easily. Laos's drawbacks cannot be hidden. Slow internet, nights that are a little too quiet, and if you are used to the American pace, the slowness here may at first make you confused. But for those exhausted after a lifetime of working, that very slowness is the gift. Laos doesn't give you much, but gives exactly what you lack: stillness. In Laos, you don't race anymore. You stroll. You don't compete anymore. You smile. And perhaps for the first time in many years, you're not trying to make a living, but simply living. If you were to find a place where your heart could truly rest, would you choose Laos? Finally, leaving the US or staying has never been a matter of right or wrong. It is simply the question, am I living a life that is truly gentle, or am I just trying to survive? If somewhere in today's video made you feel your heart open a little, made you feel life could be a little simpler, then maybe that is the signal meant for you. Where do you think you would start over? Share it in the comments. Who knows? Your answer might touch someone who needs a way out. If you found this video helpful, leave a like and gently hit subscribe. I will continue bringing you to places that help you live cheaper, breathe deeper, and feel happier.